this is a webinar that I think this is one of the areas that we really feel is very, very important, that we get the facts about payment processing, and we see a lot of questions in this area. And sometimes we get delayed in getting a booking website online because somebody says it is not secure, things like that, where we'll be processing hundreds of cards a day, literally, thousands, and like in the over a period of a week, once a week, we do a report and we see like thousands of transactions running through. So we felt it's important that we really start addressing these issues through webinars so we can get a better understanding of how things work. So we'll just get started. I have Todd, who is part of the gallery merchants, that will be able to share with us more of a insight in terms of what happens in the whole credit card traditional model. The other thing that we want to cover also is Authorize.net and the gateway part of it, and then we also want to cover something called Stripe. We've been working with Stripe just the last few months, and there's been a lot of interest. We've been having a lot of requests for Stripe for probably several months, and we just integrated with them about 3 or 4 months back. And we've been kind of signing up some of the newer people on Stripe account. So these are the three things that we want to cover in this webinar, just basically addressing questions in terms of payment processing, and then I'll have Todd share a little bit more from a traditional perspective of what happens when we do a merchant account, and what happens when we try to sign up with a merchant account. And actually, easy in keeping, we try to keep it seamless within the product so that people coming online can make a reservation on their website, and then boom, it automatically takes the credit confirmation and processes it through. And so we want to address some of any questions you might have of how easy in keeping does things. Sometimes people have questions about refunds and cancellation charges, things like that. So we'll talk about that. I'll have Bobby maybe share a little bit more about that. Okay. And also, if you have anyone has questions, maybe when we finish a specific point, specific slide, we can just feel free to just jump in and ask any questions. And we are recording this webinar because I got some few requests asking that if we can record it, then we can make it available for other people. All right. So let me just step into this right away. All right, there it is. Okay. So basically, if you look at a traditional merchant account platform, a lot of times, we talk about gateway. So the gateway that we connect with is called Authorize.net. That's been our preferred gateway. We also connect with a gateway called CC Avenue, which is mostly used in Asia. But Authorize.net pretty much works in North America, and I'll show you a little bit the countries it works with. But we've worked with Authorize.net over 10 years, so we've had a long relationship with them. They used to be very easy to work with. The reseller department is very good in terms of support and things like that. So we like working with Authorize.net, and sometimes we try to steer people towards Authorize.net because of their support, and also because of the longevity. Many years back, we first worked with another company that was a gateway. And so we actually met with them personally, and we started it, and then suddenly something happened. We had a crisis, and then we called them. We couldn't get through to these guys. That really scared us. It's like, wow, here's money we're putting into this account. We don't know. So, and we are bringing customers. So that's why we just said, no, we're going to go with a standardized company. Authorize.net is probably one of the largest gateway, in America. So the gateway kind of sits in between the merchant account and the credit card. So here is your account and the credit card company right here. So if you look at this, are you able to see my mouse pointing?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what happens? So what we do is the PMS sits. When somebody comes online, let's just look at two different scenarios. One is the credit card. Somebody's coming onto your website, makes a booking on your website. Okay, when you make a booking on your website, then what happens is we take the credit card information and then we push it to Authorize.net. So we push it right to these gateways to Authorize.net, and then what happens is Authorize.net it basically takes care of all the details in terms of taking the credit card information, validating, making sure that there's card in the address is valid, there's money in the account, and then it sends back an information to us saying that the card is valid. It is a good card, and you can process this reservation through. So that's the only time that we will send the reservation to the next step. Okay. So we'll say, okay, yes, the credit card's good. Here's the transaction ID. We get a transaction ID directly from Authorize.net, and we say, okay, the money's moving forward. So we process the credit card, we process the reservation, and we go to the next page, which is the confirmation page. Okay, that's in a typical online reservation system. Okay. But if in case there was an error, for instance, the address do not match, this is a very common question that we get, especially when people have guests from, let's just say Europe or different parts of the world. Then a lot of times we have some problems, because if they have a AVS check, the address verification check, the address verification check on Authorize.net will make sure that everything matches. Like, you need to match your the address, your the door number and the zip code. And so if it doesn't match, it will throw an error. So we end up getting a lot of errors. So we usually tell our customers, like, hey, don't have the AVS check on, so that if the address is not, in terms of it's not accurate, it still go through. So maybe Todd, when you are talking, you can maybe kind of address that as well. Okay. So, so that
Sure.
we have the AVS check. We tell them don't do that. And also, since it's a credit, the card is not present. It's coming online. We have an account called the credit card not present account, which would be the way that we process authorized accounts. So traditionally, that's what we've done. We've always had one account. We tell our clients, just set up a credit card not present account so you can use it for your online transaction. And then and also, since our website, when somebody walks in and does walks in with their credit card information, they can give you the credit card at the front desk, and boom, you can take that credit card information. We have a swipe card device called, it's a Magtech reader. Basically, it's a simple device that goes on the side of a computer. You swipe it. All it does is really push the data of the credit card into the software. It really doesn't do anything other than that. It's just like a smart reader that just reads the credit card information, and it pushes to the software, and then you click on process now, and then it processes the credit card, and it still goes to the same card not present account. We kind of standardize on that one, because people have to do two separate accounts if they have to do one card present and another one card not present. It was creating more confusion, and we just said, okay, let's just do one account. And from our research, we talked to the Authorize.net, and they said there's not a lot of difference financially. If they're doing a card not present, we can just keep the same account information. All right. So that kind of happens right here. And the payment gateway, Authorize.net pushes whatever the money that needs to go to Authorize.net pushes it to takes care of the Visa card, MasterCard payment information, and then it pushes to your merchant account, and the merchant account eventually comes down to your bank account. Okay. And I want to just address one other question here. We get this question very often. People think that that you can just walk in your bank and just get a merchant account, and it's really not the case, because a lot of the banks, they actually have almost like a separate department or a separate company that runs their merchant processor. And I was just talking to Todd about it. Maybe he can address that as well. Why most banks, or most companies have a separate merchant processor department, or separate merchant processor company to deal with these merchant accounts. Okay. All right. Any questions on this so far? Okay, so I'm going to keep going down the line. We're going to just take a few minutes and just talk about the traditional merchant account model. This is what I was telling you about. You have a merchant account that's connected to your bank, and then there's a gateway. Sometimes I tell the people the gateway is nothing but like a machine. Just like your swipe machine that you would use in a traditional restaurant. You get a machine from your bank or a merchant account. The merchant processor is just like that, except it's not a physical machine. Now everything has gone virtual. So that's why they call it virtual terminal or virtual gateway. So it's basically it's just a replacement of what normally people would do with the actual machine. Now we're doing everything online. Okay. Um, so this is the traditional merchant account. Maybe Todd, you can jump in about this point. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Bobby, do you have anything you want to share on this point?
No,
Okay.
not at this point. You're covering it well.
So we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of go ahead and have Todd. Todd's company is called Payments Gallery. They're based in Houston. So we just felt it'd be good to get some information from somebody that's doing this day in and day out from the merchant side, from the processor side. Todd, just jump in, please. And if there's any questions, guys, we can ask Todd as well. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Gideon, for having me on the conference call today. Glad to be of assistance for this. And so you're right. I think you've done a great job in explaining just the kind of the process of how this all works. And traditional merchant accounts are something that have been around for a very long time. The reason we refer to them as traditional now is because as the payments industry has continued to evolve, there are a lot of new products, or what they call fintech companies, that have come to market. And a lot of them are recognized as like PayPal. That one's been around for quite some time. Gideon had already mentioned Stripe. Basically what happens is these are very large companies that aggregate a lot of small accounts under a master merchant account, and that's why they call it aggregation. And so what happens with a traditional merchant account, the reason the fees are a lot different is because a business is getting a direct merchant account with a particular payment processor in that case. And so that's where things like PCI compliance come into play, separate reporting, maybe a different user interface or a dashboard, the rates and the fees based on the business risk and the model and things like that all come into play. Whereas the difference with an aggregator model is that particular large company is just having one account under a massive, probably thousands and thousands of other merchant accounts. And what they're doing is they're leveraging the risk and the security across their entire platform. And that's why in most cases with an aggregator model, you have two rates. Usually there's a card present rate and a card not present rate. We basically call that kind of a tiered pricing model. So with this particular slide here, Gideon's right. A traditional merchant account, if you have the right provider that's handling it for you, you're going to have a much higher level of customer service and experience. That's just what's built into that particular model. There's going to be a lot more communication with it, particularly if your provider is good. They're going to try to help you steer away from chargebacks, customer disputes, risky or dangerous transactions. Depending on the size of your operation and your types of transactions you're running, there can be some room to negotiate. My partner and I with Payments Gallery here in Houston, we've been in the industry for over 15 years individually. And so we specialize in kind of the hard to place accounts. We work with brokering, understanding the business owner, direction and vision, and then what we do is we put ourselves in your shoes and try to get you the best rates, because we're not really loyal to any particular bank or institution, whereas if you walk into your standard bank like Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they're more interested in posting results on Wall Street, and they're going to try to make as much profit on the account as they can, whereas our philosophy is a little bit different with that. So the last bullet point there is rates can be based on volume of sales. That is correct. The great thing too is when you do work with a broker such as ourselves, we know some of the inside secrets to be able to negotiate. There are fees that are the same across all industries or types of transactions, but then there are a lot of what we call kind of junk fees or add-on fees, where certain processors or relationships will try to add more profitability into the account, and in most cases they're not needed. And so the great thing with what Gideon's team is doing is Authorize.net, not only is it an industry standard payment gateway, it's very robust. They're constantly working on innovation, and then it's just a matter of plugging in the preference of the traditional merchant account into that solution then. I hope that summarizes it. Did anybody have any questions based on that overview then?
Any questions? Just jump in, please. But I think, Todd, that's a good summary, Todd. And
okay.
This really, it really points to where everything matters. When money comes in, if it comes in like 3 days from now versus the next day makes a huge difference, you know. So we've seen that, you know, some customers we've had to, you know, certain things don't happen like next day, so they have to negotiate things like that. So having someone like a processor really helps us to make sure that we get the money right away as soon as you can, things like that, you know. And contrasting what Todd was saying, you know, Todd, you were talking about this different fees, and one thing that we've heard from the clients in the last year or so, you know, since Stripe and what's the other company, Bobby? No, no, the other Square and Stripe have been, you know, been big on the news, you know. And one thing that we are finding that people are going towards these companies because they just have there's no per month transaction. They don't care about card present or card not present. They don't care about anything. They just have flat fee, you know. So it's like
Hmm.
0.95%, and then it's like a 30 cents per transaction, and that's it, you know. So you can do one transaction or you can do 1,000 transaction a month. It doesn't matter. So you're paying for the same. So that's one of the reasons we are finding that is much more simpler to get people up and running right away with a provider like Stripe, you know. So, and our programming that we have done with Stripe is, you know, has been, you know, very, I mean, they have, you know, pretty nice technology in terms of, you know, how things are being done. So we are doing some internal things to work with seamlessly so that, you know, you can do everything online with Stripe, you know. Boom, come in and
Yeah,
connect.
and those are all really good points, and that's one of the things too, specifically from like a risk and underwriting model. If one of your clients is working with, say, for example, a lot more international transactions, you know, we're here in, you know, Houston and Texas, we have a lot of international transactions coming through just being close to the border, but Stripe does a good job of helping filter the risk and the types of reward with those types of transactions. And so having international transactions through a traditional merchant account can sometimes present some challenges. And so in that case, Stripe could be a really good solution. The other thing, and you had touched on this too, and I should have mentioned it as well, but there's some differences in how the funding windows work between a traditional merchant account and also an aggregator. So typically an aggregator will take their fees out ahead of time before they do any deposit into the business checking account. And some business owners really find that frustrating or hard to track because they have to kind of recreate their transaction to see how many sales they actually ran in a given cycle. And so a lot of it depends on the robustness of the reporting. Now, with a traditional merchant account, in most cases, if you have a company that's working with you advantageously, you can request what's called gross deposits, meaning if you have a $100 sale come through for the day, you would get that $100 into your bank account. And then what they would do is a billing cycle at the end of the month for all the fees. And so then it's just a single debit as opposed to taking a percentage out of each transaction, which can kind of be a little complicating in that case. And then with the funding window too, most people don't realize, but a traditional merchant account operates within typical banking days. So that's Monday through Friday. Most processors don't move money on weekends or holidays. But what's going to be the biggest caveat is where the cutoff time is for that particular processing platform. So the advantage of Authorize.net is that can be set at any point during the day. That's a setting on the back end of that console. And so if you want to run your reservations through 11:59 in the evening, you could do that. But if you say, you know what, we want to get funded faster and we want to have our cutoff at, you know, a shift change or 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, technically you could speed up your funding by getting it in to the processor faster and having that batch cycle closed too. So there's some strategy, you know, depending on how people need to manage your cash flow in that regard as well.
In terms of, you know, for our clients, basically we have our cutoff time that we have, basically are pushing is about 6 o'clock CST. So I think it's 5 p.m. Eastern time that we, sorry, 6 p.m. Eastern time that the transactions are being batched. You know, so any transaction you do during the day, if you run anything through Easy Inkeeping or through the online booking engine, all the transactions from Easy Inkeeping gets, you know, accumulated on the back end of Authorize.net at 6 p.m. Then it gets batched out at that point. So till then, really, the money is really not moving. And actually, what happens is, so in Easy Inkeeping, if you want to do a refund or if you want to do any changes, you can actually just do a delete. Is that right, Bobby? On the
Yeah, if it hasn't batched, you just delete it out of the billing screen of the reservation and it will void the transaction. And it'll tell you, are you sure you want to void this transaction? You click OK, and it will just go away.
Yeah. So, but if in sometimes, like, let's just say you need to do a refund, then you would, you basically would need to, you can do a refund till it's batched. So basically, if you're doing a refund, sometimes people are trying to do a refund. It's like, well, can't do a refund. Why is it not refunding? But actually, it's still not batched from, so there's still the money's in the queue, so it's not gone out. So basically, you need to do, if you're doing refunds, it's got to be the very next day. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, you explained it really well, because a void would be a transaction in the current batch, whereas a refund would be after it's batched.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is kind of just kind of running through Authorizer.net. It's pretty standard. We've been working with Authorizer.net, but Stripe is something new that we've been working with. I actually we were going to have somebody from Stripe also on the call, just to kind of give us their idea of how they're working, but we were not able to get them on this call. But hopefully we'll do another webinar where we will be able to also have a Stripe person. I'll be able to kind of explain this new ideas, new phenomena. Of course, there's risks to it, but also there's also simplicity, I guess. I guess that's what smaller B&Bs, small properties that have 5 rooms. If you have 10 rooms, people are want to get something up and running quickly. We've seen people just say, hey, let me just put me on Stripe, boom, they're so it goes pretty fast. Authorize.net, generally, if you just do a gateway account, it takes about 2 days to you need to basically give a var sheet that you need to get from your merchant account and give it to Authorize.net. They've really made it much more simpler than what it was 5 years back. But it's but it still takes about a couple days. If you want to do a whole merchant account, generally, Todd, how long does it take if somebody wants to do a merchant account with you guys?
That's going to kind of vary depending on the platform that we have to go with and a couple other variables. I tell people, and they get surprised on this because they're like, well, I really needed a merchant account yesterday, and they're trying to go into their bank, like you said, and get one set up, the same day or whatever. Most banks usually take 4 to 5 business days. We've optimized the process where in most cases we can have a live merchant ID number within about 2 to 3. But that's assuming that the business owner has all their documentation ready, their EIN is ready to go, they've got a voided check set up on their bank account. And so if we get going down the documentation phase and we find out that any of that stuff is missing, that's obviously outside of our control, and that can delay it a little bit longer. But in most cases, we're very efficient, and then we know exactly what we need on a per provider basis, and so it just saves everybody time that way.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. So generally you need to give in time for that. So usually when customers come and say, hey, we need to get up and running, and then they say we need to get a merchant account set up. Usually we just tell them, no, it's just we can easy inkeeping, we can set up quickly up and running. For a let's just say like a 20-25 room property, you can up and running in a day. But if you need to do the merchant side of it, the online side of things, of course that's going to take time. So we kind of always need to kind of refer that. And then here, if you look at this one, Authorize.net works with in different countries right now. They're working in Canada, UK, Europe, and Australia. The last few years they added more Australia and Europe, I believe. But traditionally, they're very in terms of the they're pretty standard company to work with. Okay, let's keep going down here. Okay, hello. Okay, let me check. There it is. Okay, so this is the aggregator merchant model that Todd already talked about. PayPal and Stripe are the two things that we offer. We do. We offer PayPal and Stripe, but I think Stripe has gotten a lot of press, and they're newer in the market, but they've gotten pretty big last few years. I believe the original founders are from somewhere in Europe, but they're the technology is pretty interesting. We kind of looked at it when we did the initial. I looked at the way they're doing all their transactions, processing, things like that. It's pretty easy to get things up and running. That's one of the one of the plus points about Stripe. With PayPal, we have not really seen. We have offered PayPal for many years. We have not seen any increase in that. It's very few people use PayPal, at least for us. It seems like a little bit more headache, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. It's not bashing PayPal, but I'm just saying it was great when it opened up. But I think in terms of usability, working with someone like a technology company like us that's pushing things underneath the layer, it's not been so so user friendly. They have a lot of options, for instance, but like if for an MLM company, like a multi layer company, you can take a payment and put it into 10 different slots and send it different ways. Things like that. We had to do something like that for a client in Thailand. So those are different options that's there. But for a traditional, for a regular property, I think PayPal has not been that great of a strategy. But I feel like definitely the regular standard merchant model, and of course the Stripe with the new way we're doing things with Stripe also has been good ways to move forward. And I think it was pretty clear what Todd explained, how the aggregate merchant model works. How they can pull everything together, and being able to offer this kind of pricing without not needing to worry about what type of a transaction, card present, card not present, things like that. So those are the new things. Any questions on this?
Say, Gideon, I was going to just expand on one other thing there too. Based on the last bullet point you're showing on the screen here, good choice for startup businesses or hotels based out of the U.S. So I would definitely echo that. A lot of times, one of the most frequently asked questions we get as a payments company is to say, hey, when it comes to fees, should I go with something like PayPal or Stripe or Square, or should I just start out with a traditional merchant account? And our answer to that really kind of directs it back to the business owner, because at the end of the day, it's a fork in the road. PayPal, Stripe, and Square tend to be what we call self-driven solutions, or there's a learning curve with it, and it's just kind of a self-directed payment mechanism. So if a business owner is technically savvy, if they feel like they can spend the time learning how to use the system, they may not necessarily be doing all the programming. They would leave that up to you guys. But all things considered, if they say, you know what, having a level of customer service to reach somebody on the phone when I have questions, that's not a really big deal for me. I'm really price sensitive, then I would definitely say PayPal, Stripe, or Square is a good startup option. Now, we frequently crunch the math on this, and typically when a business's sales, it varies from company to company and business model, but usually right around the $4,000 to $5,000 a month in total sales volume is where you really start to get a breakdown on Stripe and PayPal and maybe Square not being good solutions for business, because the more volume you actually push through a traditional merchant account, the lower your rates can actually get, just because it's offsetting other fees. And then the advantage of that is you're going to have a provider that's actually responsive with customer service and things like that. And so, for those people that have just kind of the occasional bedroom that they're, booking here and there, they're kind of a hobbyist at it. They're going to say, hey, I don't know if I really want to turn this into a business model. In most cases, I would say it would probably be better for those people just to go ahead and set up something very simple like Stripe. And once you really get your business with traction and you're off and running and you're making the sales and you're getting better at it, then you can always upgrade into a traditional merchant account later on, or add that as an alternative option down the road too then.
And actually, that's kind of something that we've been, some of the newer people, especially, we have, just in the last week, we had 2 new properties that just signed up, and they're basically, one of the properties was actually an existing property, I think probably 40, 50 rooms, but there's a new owner, and so he wanted something up and running right away, and we said, hey, just jump on Stripe, get used to, And in terms of what we've done with Stripe is we've kind of like taken a lot of the programming out of the Stripe and into the system itself. So basically, our reporting should be sufficient enough to be able to say, okay, every day you can run a payment settlement report, see what's coming in, And so some of those things like that we've done that will be able to work with Stripe. But this is a typical scenario. We just had a property just sign up, that was an existing property, but a new owner comes in. We told him, if you want to get up and running right away, and he doesn't know much about it, the account information, on the merchant side. So he's up and running on Stripe, and then once you get a feel for it, you can see what you're paying in terms of your what you're paying at the end of, let's just say, after 3 months, you see, oh wow, I'm paying this much. Then you can easily go back to a traditional system and say, okay, let me see if I can get a better deal, and being able to kind of work out a better numbers with the traditional model. And I think that would be probably what we would suggest. People that are just coming in new, that want to just get something up and running quickly, and also people that one of the things that, if we are not comfortable with all this monthly fees and everything, and always there's a little bit of ups and downs in terms of the not knowing exactly what kind of transaction payment, what kind of commission they'll be paying, or what kind of a per transaction payment they're going to be paying. But of course, as Todd mentioned, the more you process, the better rates you get, and your fees go down. So definitely, these are a couple different models that we have. I have one more slide. I'll just show this here. So these are kind of some of the public domain stuff that we were able to pull out, that shows the different merchant models. I'm going to have this PPT available, on our blog, and also this, I'll put the actual video of this presentation as well on the blog, so people can download it and take a look at it. So anyway, we just want to kind of just give a high-level overview. We'll probably start maybe trying to do another one, maybe in the next month or so, and just trying to get a little bit more details and find out what questions we need to address in terms of how things work, and what can we do from a software perspective to make things easy for our customers to get started with the payment platform. Any questions? Any questions from anybody? So we have about 8 of us on the call. No questions?
Well, if you don't have any questions, you have a very educated audience, so I congratulate you on informed.
Yes.
I was going to say, for the record here too, as we're wrapping this up, for people that are either on the call right now, or that will be listening, on a future session, or even downloading this and watching this video later on. My partner and I, we're available to do a cost analysis. So if you feel like you're a business owner that's in that kind of midway position, like, okay, I'm already using some of these other technologies. Should I look at adding a traditional merchant account? We'll do that for you at no cost. We'll run the numbers and come back with some suggestions or some strategies. And then on the same token too, if you've been using an account with, a big bank, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or just any standard merchant account, we're more than happy to do that for you as well, because a lot of times if you haven't gone back and revisited a merchant account in a couple of years since it started, there's been a lot of changes in the industry as overall, and it would be good to just kind of pinpoint to see if there's any way to trim fees or make some suggestions on that. And so because of our relationship with Gideon and his team, we're glad to offer that at no cost to any of the client base, just as an additional courtesy in that regard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Todd. But definitely, everyone, I think what we are seeing is that because of the increased competition in terms of these new PayPal, Stripe, and all this, really coming in, taking traditional business, there's a lot more competitiveness. Even Authorized or Net dropped the fees for us. It used to be, I don't know, $15 a month. I don't know exactly, Bobby, they've dropped the fees, for our clients, so there's definitely, so we can definitely do that, And Todd, what's the website, your website, Todd?
Our website is paymentsgallery.com. That's payments with an S, and then gallery, GALLERY.com. And our email address is service@paymentsgallery.com.
And guys, you can always, email Bobby, or, sales, or USA support. greystar.com, and then we'll be able to connect you with Todd and their team. I had, I think maybe last month, I had one of the clients actually talk to, excuse me, to Todd's partner, Tim, so definitely I think, we want to, as things are getting competitive, we need to be, we need to see what's the best thing we can do, to get the best rates. Okay.
Absolutely. Glad to help with that.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Anybody? Dixie, you always have a question. Do you have a question?
No,
No. Okay. All right.
not today.
Not today. Say it again.
She said not today.
Not today. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being on this call, and just keep us posted with any questions, and we'll be more than happy to connect you with Todd. And maybe the next step, we can maybe take it to the next level, get some actual stats and things like that. So we'll work with you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Todd, for your time and joining us on this call.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right, take care.